Okay, so Vanessa, I'm so happy to be with you for the first one in the second week, the first one of the second week of this series. So for those that don't know, this is a series with the hope of offering inspiration, a source of energy for those of us who are looking for ideas on what we can do to influence our company's culture and develop our own well-being. So with that, I'd love to invite you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks for letting me be here. My name's Vanessa Montgomery Williams, and I'm a people manager at DXW, a small or SME agency that designs and builds digital services for the public sector. I'm also a new mum of an 8-year-old little boy, a wife, a feminist, and a diversity and inclusion advocate.
What a great rounded introduction. So could you share the story of what led you to working in influencing company culture?
Sure. So I, after university, came to London to be an actress. Yeah, that didn't happen. But for 8 years, I worked in different organisations as an EA, team assistant, PA, and sort of grew a love for that work. And eventually found myself at Skype, where I was EA to the product and marketing VP for about a year and a half for maternity cover. And it really showed me the work that I loved the most about what I had been doing. So obviously most of it was administrative work, but I got the opportunity to be involved in and part of an employee engagement initiative called Loves London that Skype did. It was something that focused on events, on knowledge sharing, charity work, and then engaging the employees whenever we had a situation like a big office move. And I just really enjoyed it. I'd done a little bit of it unofficially when I worked at Capita Simons, sort of arranged a few events, did an employee choir, that sort of thing. But Skype was the first company that really invested in that and showed me how important it was for the success of an organisation. And then moving on from Skype, I realised that tech for good was really where I wanted to be. I saw Skype as a real tech for good organisation because they gave their product away for free and it just improved people's lives, being one of the early video conferencing tools. And eventually I found DXW and found a home as a generalist operations assistant. So I did a bit of everything: finance, marketing, facilities and HR. And as with SMEs, you get to grow and find out what you really enjoy, where your passions lie. And I was working with this amazing group of human beings who were all trying to build services that everyone in the UK could use. And all I realised I wanted to do was support them to do that and make sure that they were happy when they came to work and that they could get their best work done. So that's my story.
Right. So now you support the people who support the UK.
Yep. That sounds very big. But
we'll put that as your that could be the thumbnail of this video.
Excellent.
So out of your amazing like the amazing experience you have that I hope you're writing a book about or will one day, out of all the breadth of different aspects related to culture that you've had experience of, which are the ones that you're most interested in?
So my main passion is inclusivity. I want to make sure that everyone feels safe and welcome at work, and not just in my current organisation, but everywhere. My early experiences of the working world were quite hard. It's easy. I mean, I'm not that old, but even at the beginning of my career, the sort of toxic cultures that I was my introduction, some of the bullying that went on, and then the sort of small microaggressions that I didn't understand at the time and only sort of realised later, that it was things got better for me, and it's only in later years, as I say, that I sort of realised the inequalities that I'd been seeing as a young person, and so that's what I've been keen to work on more latterly. Initially, I went into it from a feminist viewpoint, and something that I got an opportunity to think about a lot more at DXW, because there were activists within DXW, and I got to go to events. There's an event I'm involved with called UK Gov Camp, which is an unconference. I got to go to a place where everybody's views were treated equally, and that was such an unusual thing to me, which is really sad, that it's only been the sort of last 5 to 10 years that's I've really realised that. So that's what I like to work on now. I like to encourage people in my organisation, within other organisations, to consider inclusivity as one of the most important parts of company culture.
Shout out to UK GovCamp crew. I'm a big admirer myself. Yeah, I found that I went to last year, I think it was. I went to an event that was about autism awareness, and that is a time, like, I genuinely felt, when I was part of that experience for the day, I felt as though this is how a lot of companies potentially could be, like how they could be, the experience could be like this in the future. And what I mean by that, like specifically what I mean is just how, I'm repeating the word, but like how inclusive it was. Like the idea was really paying attention to the different needs that people have and creating the experience that as much as possible like enabled that. And it was more like it required things to be done differently, but like it genuinely felt so different, just the feeling and the way people communicated. I felt really lucky to have experienced what I feel like was a glimpse into the future for a lot of organizations, because I'm sure some are there at the moment, but so many are still on the journey.
Most definitely. And it is when you walk into one of those events, you feel that everybody is comfortable, and that's quite unusual. But once you felt that, it's something that you want to take back and to encourage in other places.
And another thought that came to mind when you mentioned inclusivity, I don't know if it, is how in some organizations where there is inequality, it's partly the sense that people who have more privilege currently, they either perceive that they'll lose something if other people have more equality, if there is more equality, or they actually will like lose things. And I think it's been surprising to me when I have conversations, just being as direct as saying, well, yes, like in cases you will lose certain things potentially for things to be more equal, but the status quo at the moment is you have it like this, but then other people don't have it like that. Like, would you still prefer those things that you have? And I realize we'll probably look back in years in the same way we look back at how other things were. We'll look back at the way things were and think, wow. But yeah, it's like I'm inspired by this being your focus.
Oh, thank you. I find that really interesting what you're saying, because I've had that. I've been to events where I've been doing, or on conferences where I've been having a platform to talk about diversity, and had people sort of say, well, I'm going to lose out. I won't be listened to anymore. I'm no longer important or relevant. And I think it's such a shame, because there's so much to gain as well. I think even people who have found themselves in the stronger positions in society will still have felt the pain of not fitting in some way. And I think that's once you've kind of found the part of somebody that's felt like that in any way, has ever walked into a room and felt uncomfortable, that you can use that and make them realise that they might even get something out of this situation. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to do a show focused on inclusion. Now, if we think about, if we now go kind of more specific, so could you share some examples of some of the things that you've worked on and what you've learned?
Certainly. So I'm going to keep on a theme and talk about my work, because it's the work I'm most proud of in DXW. So obviously I came to diversity and inclusion from a feminist standpoint, but I spent some time reflecting on the privileges that I have, and realised that equality is a far more important part of this for everybody. So some of the work I started with was just increasing visibility of the need for equality, the need for inclusion. So it was early on in my time at DXW, I started the DX Women Slack group, which then sort of grew into lunches, became part of the conversation whenever something was happening, a change maybe in the organisation, or even into the projects we were working on. So we started a diversity and inclusion group, and we met, it's still happening now, we meet monthly, and we make sure that diversity and inclusion is considered in everything that we do. So early on, I looked at our recruitment practices, I looked at our induction and onboarding of team members, the language that we use, and the way that we educate our team on everybody's differences, and create that environment where people can celebrate and talk about their differences to make the organisation have a culture of inclusion and comfortableness. So those are a few of the things I did early on. But I should also say, when I'm talking about any of these ideas, these are not my ideas. These are things that I have heard about. I've had the benefit of meeting people who've come up with these approaches. Everybody puts their own spin on them, but there's no new ideas, right? So I just see myself as someone that can be a bit of a conduit. I think we used that word when we were chatting earlier, to sort of share good ideas to make things better for people.
And that's the spirit behind this series, in that I was seeing so many people on LinkedIn explain how they're no longer in work, or like finding it really challenging to work in whichever conditions those who are still working are finding themselves in. The idea was, can we shine a light and share on examples that we can be inspired by and adapt? So this continues that spirit. Could you so given the context that we're in and the effect the pandemic's had, could you share an example of what your company has done to support people's well-being during it?
Certainly. holding myself back to one will be difficult.
Okay, well, you can share more than one then.
Thank you. So I think the quickness to act and early on was really valuable. It was valuable to me. I was on maternity at the time, and it was about 2 weeks before the lockdown communication go out from our MD Dave to say, this is happening, this is what we're seeing, and we want you to be at home and safe. So there was no question, and it's always been that way at DXW. We're very fortunate to have a senior leadership team that are just put the people first. They also considered everyone's needs. The communications were very rounded to consider everybody. They did some real tangible things like reducing hours. So knowing that people would have, people who are caring for others would have the need for more time. But we didn't reduce pay, which was a really admirable thing. Feel like I can say that because I've been on maternity. I wasn't actually there and involved at the time. They did mental health check-ins. Mental health's obviously been a huge thing throughout the pandemic, and they've got a lovely simple way of doing it through Slack using emojis. I think it was workflow in Stack, and they just ask, how are you feeling today? They've got, I think, 8 different heart emojis, and you just put what colour heart you're feeling, and it gives line managers and HR an opportunity to other people, team, an opportunity to talk to anybody that is struggling without them having to verbalise something fully, but also just everybody, gives everybody an opportunity to check in on those people that need the support. They did some wellbeing webinars on nutrition and general wellbeing, and they put flexible hours in, particularly this time of year is going to be helpful so people can take more time out, lunchtime in the mornings. That's also good for inclusivity for people who don't feel safe being out in the dark at night. And they created a parent Slack group where parents could come together and talk about their challenges, share tools for sort of home tutoring, and just generally support each other and say, wow, this is hard, but we're here for each other.
A supportive environment, and with strength of making decisions and moving fast. So could you share so if that's examples of how your company supported people, could you share, I guess, particularly given you've been on maternity, and like what some of the things you've been doing to support your own well-being?
Sure. I'm glad I'm talking about this now and not before I had a baby, because I didn't used to be as good as I am now. But I really went back to basics, eating, sleeping well. I get migraines as well, so I should have known this already, but when you've got a little one, you have to make sure that you're sleeping, and I think I'd always underestimated how important sleep was to me. Having a nice shower, that's another thing you learn as a new mum. It's like, that was my treat every day, that my husband could take my son and let me have that time to myself. It's just that thinking time. There's something about the cleansing feeling as well of water, just sort of also knowing to manage my stress, and realizing when I was getting stressed, and mostly that came from having really good sounding boards. So even in the busyness of early parenthood, I made sure I checked in with a couple of my sort of most trusted, closest friends, at least a couple of times a week, and that would just let me know if I was coping all right, or if there was something wrong, because just naturally when we chat, stuff comes out. So yeah, and then doing something creative, like even the tiniest thing. Right now it's cooking new things for my some to try. But I hope to get back to sort of writing, drawing, all that sort of side of things, but when I've got a little bit more time back. But doing something creative, like I know that I'm not doing well when I haven't done something creative for a while.
And on the creative vibe, and you mentioned writing, one of the things people are often curious about is what are people's kind of favorite books. So if you were going to recommend one book to people, which would it be?
That's an easy one, and I have a little picture here because I think visuals are always useful. It is the book you wish your parents had read, and your children will be glad that you did. I go to an event, Stylist Live, every year, and I got the opportunity to see Philippa Perry talk about raising a child. And I went a bit skeptical on the whole sort of child psychology angle of parenting. But this book is just amazing, and it's actually made me understand my relationships with my nearest and dearest a lot better. And yeah, I can't recommend it highly enough.
It's a really powerful recommendation. Thank you for sharing it. And with the final question in the similar spirit of sharing, given the experience you've had, whether it be through the different roles and the companies you've worked in, whether it's the lens of like your focus on feminism and broader to D&I, and your own kind of journey that you've been on recently, drawing upon all of that, or whichever bits you'd like to draw upon, if somebody watching this was looking to really influence their company's culture, what advice would you give them?
I think the best thing that I can say, and it's something that I've only really learned in the last year and certainly this year, is the importance of keeping the conversation open. I, like so many people, were at home and had the time to really get involved in some of the conversations around Black Lives Matter earlier in the year. And I've become part of a number of communities through parenting, but also through a course an HR course I've done recently. I'm part of a group called HR Ninjas on Facebook, very good HR community. But I had some really robust conversations in there about diversity and inclusion, and about these harder conversations that have come up. And it's so easy to, with anything, when you find that someone disagrees with you, to sort of close off from that argument and to maybe say, oh, they're never going to see my point of view. But I think when it comes to company culture, particularly, knowing that you need to have everybody on board, everybody influences company culture, and it should be for everybody. And even if someone has a point of view that is so radically different to yours, the worst thing that you can do is just give up on that conversation and not have it. And it's hard sometimes, it really is, and you have to become uncomfortable at times, but it just takes you to such a better place when you do. And if you can maintain your what's the word, you can hold back your passion and listen to what they have to say, and you can try to understand it from being in their shoes. That's the only way we're going to get anywhere better. So that's my biggest piece of advice. The other thing is be part of your wider community. Your company culture doesn't stop in your company. There's so many opportunities to be influenced by other places and to take the good things that happen in your company and make them part of a better world. So yeah, get involved, get out there, find out where the good people are to talk to, and of course Culture Fist is one of the wonderful places to start.
You've been so generous with all that you've shared. That advice was amazing, and in the spirit of continuing the conversation, if people would like to continue the conversation with you, we'll put a link under the video to do so.
Please do. I love talking.
So with that, yeah, Vanessa, thank you so much for being part of the series.
Thank you, Matt, and thanks for everything that you're doing. It's wonderful.
And we'll see people tomorrow. Bye-bye.